welcome to Teacher Therapy. Today we have a very special guest named Tonya, and she's going to talk to us about what it was like to transition from the corporate world into the classroom. And we are also going to discuss some of the ways that administration can sabotage an excellent teacher's career. We have lots to talk about today. But before we go there, Latanya, I would just love to know, as you transitioned into the classroom, what was your biggest struggle as a teacher?
The biggest struggle was not being a part of the system. Coming from a corporate background, degree paralegal. I worked in the legal field, ran a legacy and trust division for the Salvation Army, Arkansas, Oklahoma divisions, all of those things. There were specifics and requirements for that. So I was able to navigate that because I was trained for it. But coming into an already defined system where hardly anyone would tell you what the rules were, that was challenging. So it was interesting trying to balance my passion for wanting to teach and what actually compelled me to transition from the corporate to being able to be effective in the classroom and utilizing all of these strategies and things that superfluous things, I believe, that kept being tossed my way when all I wanted to do was to teach the kiddos.
That makes sense. I've heard that a lot. I kind of was in a similar situation in that my undergraduate degree wasn't teaching. And so I did Teach for America, which gives you a 5-week boot camp, and then they throw you straight into the classroom, and you're taking graduate classes for the next 2 years while you're teaching. So I just remember thinking, like, there's so many acronyms, there's so many meetings, there's so many piles of paperwork everywhere, and all the things you've got to put on the wall. And it really ended up feeling like 4 jobs rolled into one. And I remember thinking it really wasn't like this when I was a student. I don't remember my teachers having to go through this. So it definitely can be a shock. That's true.
It was. And the acronyms were, excuse me, my voice is healing for the audience that's listening. Um, the acronyms were, oh my gosh, they became the bane of my existence because they would sit and they would talk and pretty smart chick. Okay. I do not profess to know everything. I am always learning. But when I sit and it's like ping pong, you've got acronyms flying above your head, and you have to say, what does that mean? And sometimes they will look at you with disdain and like, you don't know what that means? And you're like, well, I just asked you. So I don't know what that means. It doesn't mean that I don't have the ability to understand or grasp it. But can you tell me what that means? And invariably, I would have instructional coaches that would come in. And I had a wonderful one, by the way. And she would come in and she would say, LaTonya or Miss Williams, you need to do this, this, this. And she would observe me and she said, well, you did this, 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 and this. And I said, I did. She said, you did. I said, when did I do those things? And she was explaining to me. So she was kind of, explaining to me what each thing meant, each process. And she said, you didn't know you did it. I said, look, I'm taught to observe what's going on, determine what needs to be filled, and figure out a plan, implement it, see if it works, and if not, tweak it. So I don't have time to learn all of these things. It's just teaching. But you're right. It was that was a battle. Um, but I was doing it. I was confused that there had specific names for what I was doing, only because I didn't go and get a teaching bachelor's of teaching or anything like that. So, like anything, learning the nomenclature of that specific area, it takes time and kind of an immersive in that. So, you're right. You're right.
Definitely. And I would love to know, what was the best and the worst thing about teaching?
The worst thing was not being aware that some that had authority and leadership over me were actually not on my side. That was the worst thing. That was the worst. The best thing was I'll tell you this in this form. I had students, and oh my gosh, the combativeness of them, the girls had some specific, I don't know if they had like a TikTok, reel that showed them how to act like this or whatever it is, because they all came with the same thing. Um, but at one point, one of the students that really was the most challenging, one of the more challenging students, something had she had changed her mind about what she could do. I heard the quote is, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Well, she has shifted, because her mom and I had been putting a lot of work in on this chicken, and so another student in class was acting up, and she said, "Miss Williams, I don't know how y'all do it with all of these bad with all these bad kids in here." And I looked at her, and it was a great opportunity. And I said, "You know what? I want you all to imagine a classroom full of you." And they were looking at each other. A few of them were like, because they were the ones, yeah, I can do with a classroom of you. But imagine, for the lot of you, a classroom. You have to teach a classroom of you. And so that took a moment to seep in. And she followed up and she said, "Well, Miss Williams, I don't know why y'all do it." She said, "Why do you do it?" And I said, and I hope doesn't offend anyone, but I said, you hear of when people begin drugs, they get that first high. They're always chasing that first high because nothing is like that. And that's the reason why a lot of them, it's difficult for them to overcome that. And they say, yes. I said, well, when you get it, what we're teaching you, that's our high. I said, so when you understand, when there's something that's a roadblock in your way, and you press, you fight, you use grit, and you get it. I said, that's our high. So the teachers here that care for you and care about your future, we're fighting for that next high. We're here because of you. So that is the best part, when I've seen them realize that they can do it. They do not have to operate in fear, because a lot of them operate in fear and shame because they don't know. And that there is, if they continue to put a process to it and understand it, that they can accomplish it. Seeing my students go from, in one year, from low, you know, from low underperformers to top performers on the superintendent's list in the district, was quite an amazing thing. But I think all teachers will say, when they get it, when they understand. Well, that was a long response to that, Trish. Sorry about that.
It's beautiful. I'm mesmerized. And I would love to know, because a lot of teachers really struggle with difficult behavior. And you mentioned some of the behaviors of the girls. And so I'm curious, first, what are some of the specific behaviors that you dealt with, whether it was elementary, middle school, or high school? And then what kind of things did you do to get through and to win them to your side? Because not all of us have been successful, but it sounds like you've been successful. So I'd love to hear more.
Well, let me say, I've been successful for some,
Mm.
not for all, okay? Because they still make a decision as to whether or not they want to utilize this time for their best. And I have taught, from kindergarten up to high school, in music and eighth grade LA. So oh gosh, from the behavior with the girls, it was a lot of, there was profanity. I got more profanity thrown from the girls. I The boys did not surprisingly behave that way. Uh, they were like, give you an example. You take your hat off your head. That's pretty much a rule. And how I operated at this point, I'm going to the middle. At this point with the boys, and said, hey, you got to take your hat off. I don't want to do it. Okay. Well, then you understand the repercussions of that. Yes. Okay. And you're willing to accept the repercussions of that? You're willing to accept that? Yes. Okay. I'll ask you one more time. You want to take your hat off? And no, I don't want to do it. I said, okay. So they know that's detention. That's right up. And we can move on. A lot of challenges with the girls. And I've thought about this deeply since being, since even being away from that teaching. I believe a lot of the girls deal with jealousy and envy as a result of watching social media and its influence. Most of the girls, they would look at me, and some even said, "Oh, this is going to crack you up." One said, "Oh, I can pull men better than you." And I said, first of all, I'm an adult, and I am not in competition with you, nor do I seek to be. But that statement, it gave me the insight to what they're thinking. If you notice, I noticed for the male teachers, the girls were, they loved them. And not saying they weren't lovable. We had some amazing male teachers that had great integrity and character who wouldn't love them, but their behavior towards them was quite different at the onset than it was with me. If I can draw a picture of this to let you know what I've determined, so we've got the girls. And all of this social media, all of this is on top, okay? The influence of it. So we've got the girls watching social media who are seeing and hearing how they need to act to be popular, to be liked by the boys. So when they come in, and if they're in the face of a female or a woman who is not a coach, and a female or woman, then they're watching the boys' reaction to that female teacher. Immediately, you can see they want to discredit, they want to bring down that female teacher. Why? Because they believe that they're in competition with another female. So the idea that there's a delineation between adult and child, student and teacher, those lines have been nuked. They have no conception of that. So their behavior follows suit. They want to talk about you. One even told me, "Oh, I don't like you because you're giving us work. I got the last one fired. I'll think I'll work on you." So my response, I can only be me. And I would tell them, "Look, you all think that the teachers are here as punching bags, and that you can say anything you want and do anything you want to us." I said, "That's not true." I said, "What you must understand is that the very behavior that you are espousing and propounding on us, that's abuse. You say you don't want to be abused, but you're giving abuse." And my thing is, I would tell them, well, I tell them, "I'm not your mama. Then we're going to get down to it. I am your teacher, and some have even threatened to hit me." And I said, "Well, you're going to get hit back, you know, uh, you know, I was not the teacher to say, well, we're going to be calm. No, you're not going to curse me out. You can get out the class. You can go over wherever you need to go, but you're not going to do that." And I had a lot that I had to, go on out of the class. But I told them that I don't deserve that. But if you hit me, I'm just going to hit you back. And I'll just go to corporate America and work. They pay more, and I don't have to worry about fighting you or your mama when they come. You know,
I love it. And I'm just curious, did you have trouble with parents? Did they support you? What was the parent scene like?
it was a mixed bag. And I understand as I moved through the year, I got to understand more and more why the, for the most part, um, a lot of our parents, they drop their kids off and they're gone, or and you couldn't reach them. Some because they're working. We did have a lot of parents that were working hard to provide for their students, for their children. Some because they kept hearing the same thing over and over, and you were the fifth teacher that called about this student, and man, they're just tired working with them. There were some teachers, I'm sorry, some parents, when they found out that when I met with them or contacted them and I established contact with them. I think their guards went down, some of them, their guards went down. And when I would tell them things like, hey, we're going to have to figure out an alternative plan for your student because they're so far behind. I had my students ran from, I had ESL students, I had students who could not read or write all the way up, people on an eighth grade, on the fourth grade level, sixth grade level, and then I had a couple of high flyers, So it ran the gamut. But for those who really needed help, for the most part, most of their parents or their guardians, when they understood that I was willing to work with them for their student, they were on board. I'll share this one thing with you, Trish. One thing is, I had a student in class, and I knew his pawpaw. I had his, I had his pawpaw's number, and he just an amazing, amazing young man. He is just going to do amazing things. But he sat next to a young, pretty girl, and she was pretty. Okay, she was pretty, and he just couldn't focus on his work. He just wouldn't do his work. And I said, "Look, listen, Kay, I need you to get your work done." He said, "All right, all right." And then at the end of the class period, when he was turning stuff in, his stuff was, well, his stuff was where his mind was, and it wasn't on work. So this kept going on for a bit, and I was giving him a chance to self-correct because he's a smart guy. He is smart kid. And then when he wouldn't, matter of fact, he just completely said, "I got it. Oh, you got it. Okay." So that's a key word for me, that it's time to bring in the forces because he's got it. He is hard set that he doesn't hear a word you say, and he is focused on what he's going to do. As everyone else is working, I looked up, confirmed the number. I said, okay. So I didn't call on my cell phone. I called on the phone. I went to the phone in the classroom, start dialing. I didn't say anything, but slowly but surely, everybody like, what is she doing? And I said, Mr. O, yes, this is Miss Williams, and I have such and such in my ELA English class this period. I said, yes. I said, well, I wanted to call you. I thought to call you before this situation gets any higher, higher level. Perhaps you could help me with this because such and such is having a hard time focusing on getting his work done. I just wondered if you could speak to him briefly. Yes, I would love to. So this is going on in front of the class. They hear my part of the conversation. They don't hear that. And so I say to the student K, such and such, and it's on the line for you. And they are like, so he comes and we hear his side of the conversation. He said, I was doing my work. But at that point, I took it off my plate and I invited a heavy hitter in. I could do that with him because I know that his parents, his grandparents, his family are heavily invested in his success. I can't do that, couldn't do that with everyone. And some of the parents, they told me, would say, just send her to detention. I can't deal with it. And so I know a lot of them, we know life happens. And so a lot of our parents were dealing with some tragic situations and trying to navigate that. We had, people going through divorce, people having loss in their family, grandparents having to take care of 4 and 5 of their grandchildren, and they were well up in age. So a lot of problems ensued from situations that I'm sure that a lot of your listeners are familiar with, and that was the challenging aspect. But you did have some parents. I did have a parent threaten to come and whoop me. That was not going to be fun. So, but think about that. That was not my student. That was from another student's and another student's out there behavior towards me. But she had threatened that she was going to come up and she was going to make it happen.
So I I heard you mention things like detention and being able to send students out. Did you guys have more of a traditional consequence system where your school would back you up at that time?
Trish, are you kidding? We had detention.
Mhm.
And they would go. And for a while, we had a specific teacher in detention that would require teachers bring work for the students to do. And he would make sure that they did that work during that time. And when he left, we had people to fill in. So that authority that was in that room was all but gone. And detention turned into, I don't know, free time, playtime, some sort of a reward for them to go. And the bad part about that is after they've been in detention and not done the work that was given to them, they would come back at the tail end and say, well, you need to give them work so they can get a better grade. And I'm going, no, this one right here has a fortified F. That F is so strong. It knows it's an F. It will be an F till it dies. It's fortified. But, so this is how I would talk to my class. Come on, put some wrinkles on your brain. But it, a lot of, there were a lot of experiences that were quite concerning. We had teachers who, well, when students would do something towards a teacher, and it's as if they were coddled and given a lollipop now later. And then they came back to the classroom really emboldened, brazen, because what they had realized is that nothing would be done to them if they were the favorite student. Nothing would be done to them. They would obfuscate everything. So that's what I made sure they knew that if, look, and I'm going to say this, if you were a male student and if you came at me, I'm going to hit you with a chair because I'm a short lady. So I have to have something that's going to reach up to you. But honestly, I did not have a lot of problems with the young men. Most of them was with the girls, but yeah.
I'm really enjoying hearing your stories, and you're just so fascinating. So I'm thinking that your demeanor, which is kind and caring, yet I'm not going to mess around with you, that combination must have been the winning strategy for you because it sounds like eventually you got a lot of them over to your side. And you mentioned your eighth grade ELA class ended up breaking records and being the top of the district. So, how did you end up doing that? Was it just what you've already described, just kind of holding the line and letting them know that you care about them, but you're not going to tolerate nonsense? Like, how did that work?
Well, that was part of the strategy, but the main part was I had to create a system of learning for them. Um, when I first got the class, and mind you, when I taught vocal music, I did that elementary, and then I went to mid high school, did that for 2 years, and I was like, I need a break because this I just got to stop, everything. And that was during COVID. That was a lot was going on. And when I came back, they sought me out to teach in eighth grade ELA. So I went in thinking, this is eighth grade. I love words. I love, this is going to be fantastic. I can just jump off and get going. And I did just a quick test of the students, and I asked them who can give me the definition and examples of a pronoun and an adjective. Less than five out of all my grades, all my classes could do that. Less than five. And I went to the older teachers, the more, the teachers, who'd done this for years. And I expressed that to her and said, look, how do I effectively teach our babies how to love English language arts and words and all that can be if they don't know foundational grammar? How do I do that? And I hope you're ready for this. Her response was, well, we're not grammar teachers. I said, what? What do you mean? We're not grammar teachers. We don't teach grammar. And reading, you ready for the next part? And besides, reading is not a 21st century skill. Now, my response, I responded by now. I responded right. I said, have you lost your mind? What do you mean? I don't understand where you got that from. I said, who fed that to you and why do you believe it? And why are you espousing this ideology? And this is what you're rolling with? And I said, well, we don't. We have technology. I said, with technology, knowledge, literacy, those things are not mutually exclusive. If the kids are going to go or even thinking about going to college, that's a higher complex, of knowledge. You have to. What do you mean? I was dumbfounded. But Trish, I knew two things from that. I knew one that I didn't have help where I thought I had it. And I was kind of okay. That sucked. Oh, can I say sucked on here? The kid said that sucked. Okay. And then two, I knew I had to come up with a plan. So I went home, and for those of you who believe, I said, Lord, I need a plan. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to teach students who don't have a basic grasp of grammar and foundation in these things. I don't know how to teach them about hyperbole and infinitive. I don't know how to do this. And so what I got after prayer, and I stayed on my knees praying a lot during this time, was they need to learn how to write. They need to write. I thought, okay, they need to write. From that, I began a series, really a scaffolding of writing for them every day instead of bell work, because they said that you do what is that called, red something, red line, whatever that is. I don't know what it is, but it's online. You see a story, whatever it is, and that should be bell work. I knew that they needed to write. And so for the 5 minutes before class, the bell ringer, I will have a simple question up there and give them a certain length of time within which to respond. So the first one I started with, and I wish this was recorded, wish that was allowed. First question I put on the board was, what is your favorite color and why? And they came in and, they knew this is your bell ringer. Take out a sheet of paper and pencil, write this, answer the question, write your name. We didn't even get to, where to put your name and all of that. That came later. And so these were the responses. Oh, Miss Williams, you're doing too much, you know. And, and then, there was a Miss Williams, I don't know what color I like. I don't know what color. I said, well, pick one. Well, I like three. I said, then write about all of them. But that's too many. I said, then write about two. But Miss Williams, you said one. I said, then write about one. Now, I gave them each class the entire class period to do that because I needed to get a baseline. I needed to kind of see what I was working with. And that's when I understood that we had those who could not write at all. They just could not. We had those who, they were in different levels of their knowledge. And I knew I was onto something. I had to do that. So every day they had a question up there. We went from that to, and I'll ask you that. We went from that to questions like this. You have five senses. You can superfy one, but you lose the use of the others. Which one would you choose and why? Now, they had slowly began to accept that I wasn't giving up, that they were going to write and turn this in, right? And for most of them, once they got past that, when I would put these questions, these prompts, you can see they returned and they would have conversations amongst themselves. And no, well, if you have smell, that means you can smell all the bad stuff. I didn't think about that. That was good. But we went from that to so what was one of their favorite ones? Which would win? We were talking about leadership. A herd of lion led by a sheep or a herd of sheep led by a lion. Why? Now I have some interesting things from there. Some would say, well, the lion's going to turn around and eat up all the sheep. Now that we're on a different that made me laugh. But we're on a different path with a lot of them. But we went from that to it got more complex. Now what I did, I started compressing the time. Whereas they had, we started out the first one, they had the whole hour because I can get a baseline. The whole class time is 45 minutes. I had to get a baseline. Then As we went to the next level, I required them specifying the sentences, the number of sentences they had to write, and reduce the time. So over time, they began to build this muscle where they could think. And it was an astonishing thing to watch. I would ask them a question like, "You're stranded on a desert island, but you can have only one food for the rest of your life. What would it be?" And the most notable and funny when I said that, when a student said, "Oh, Miss Williams, that's a good one. That's a good one." Because they had began to understand what was going on, but what was really happening. They were writing every day. So those fine motor skills were increasing. There, when you write, you perceive it, it goes down, you write it on paper, then you read it again. They were working parts of their brain that they hadn't worked. But Trish, to be fair, I didn't know how the brain works. I didn't know how they learn. I had to do the research to understand what I needed to do to help them. So they were from there. And the last level, they were doing 15, no, 10 minutes. And I hearkened back to my legal days, and I would give them cases. This is the case of Goldilocks versus the Three Bears. And so I would give them the tenets of the case, and they would have to support with arguments why or why not, they should win. So the tenacity and, you know, my I'm not going to take this was part of it. But I think the biggest part was that there was a systematic plan that was implemented that allowed them to grow little by little and increase their ability. We're learning now, or I've been learning the necessity of writing. We used to do that every day. Did you have a journal or something? Or
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so, but they were so everything was laptop,
Mhm.
that. And I would tell them, "You are the computer." Ms. Williams, we don't want to hear that, but you are the computer. So I think that finding out what works and putting it in bite-sized chunks for them to do, and then encouraging them. I told them, I said, "Look, I'll believe in you until you do. I think you can do it. I believe you can do it." And they entered our state. I think across the country they have a "If I Were Mayor" contest, writing contest that's put on, I believe, by probably by the local attorney associations in the various states. So for the first time, we entered, and they wrote and entered "If I Were Mayor." We looked up, what are the duties of the mayor? What can a mayor do? The formation of the specific council. I served on the city council, so that kind of helped, with that. But I wanted to figure out ways that they could do the work and it not seem like so many work. We uh, we took words from the New York Times Words of the Year, printed them out. They came and they picked the word, and they were responsible for learning, memorizing that definition. And I had got with a couple of my colleagues, and they would stop them at times and say, "What's your word? What does it mean?" And even more than that, I had them because they really were fascinated with technology. I mean, who isn't to a certain degree? But we had them do a video or a recording of what that word means. So we were actively, utilizing their bodies, their imagination. They wrote the script, they did it. So anything, basically, Trish, anything that got them writing, thinking, and creating. That's what I implement.
That is amazing. You remind me of a modern day Marva Collins, and I feel like there needs to be a movie made about you. I love
Gosh,
it.
let me tell you, I watched and studied about Marva Collins, and that is just so amazing. I'm honored that you even think that, because whoa, the grandiose things that she did to change the dynamics and the trajectory of those students is amazing. I created she has the letter sounds. I created a ready to read program, as well as the phonics, the daily phonics, that really I was inspired by her to do that because I understand those things and the processes that she taught. That's what's missing. I think that's what's missing. And if we can reintroduce those ideas and those formats, all of those, the constructs to our students, I just believe that they can begin to put that foundation together. I've done tutoring and I've tutored here recently a 10th grade student who is in 10th grade, but she is reading on a fourth grade level. Her sister, she's in the seventh grade, first grade level. And unfortunately, it would be, if that was an anomaly, we can say, oh, that's, but it isn't an anomaly. We have a lot of students that are being ran through the system and they are not prepared. So when I would give them something to read, the 10th grade student, she could read it. Now, when she get to a lot of, like three-syllable words, the multisyllable syllabic words, she would pause, but she could read it. But if I asked her, what does that mean? Simple directions. She could not comprehend. So I began searching. I just need to know why. Because if you can read it, you think you got it, right? And it's just like if you're going for your doctorate, right? Is that what you're doing?
Oh no, second master's degree.
Your second, oh, look, it's all doctorate to me, Trish. You're going for, you're going for it. So, but if I were to read, some of the content that you are, what is your area? What are you going into?
Counseling psychology.
Perfect. If I were to read some of your textbooks, I could be able to read it. Okay, I could make out the words. I could say it, but do I comprehend? Do I understand what is actually saying? And without the ability to comprehend, then you lose. I will lose that. Whatever I read is as if that was just time passing. It may as well be hieroglyphics. And what I found out is that a lot of students are pushed to maybe recognize words, and they're missing a lot of how do I want to say it? A lot of the framework that happens below reading and writing. Like, you hear the sounds, people are reading stories to you. So you're familiar with storing in your letterbox. And so when you come across that, you understand, wait a minute, I see this letter R and in Roadrunner, I've heard that word before. So your mind automatically goes and retrieves it, and I'm getting kind of nerdy here because I was quite fascinating. I was fascinated with how this works, but I think the layers below the requirement to read have been pushed aside. And we have a lot of students that cannot comprehend simple instructions. I mean, simple instructions. So, but Marva Collins, I'm coming back to it. Marva Collins, I so, gosh, honor and was so impressed with what she did. And I believe in order to change the trajectory of our students today and really even give value to our teachers and what they do, because it is hard work and it is a calling, then we have to do something different. And I believe that different may be what has been. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Trish, I'm sorry. You got some long stories coming to you.
no, that's perfect. So I feel like, speaking of the movie theme, we're at the top, we're at the climax of the story. The kids are doing great, everybody's smiling, they're learning. And we just know that that balloon has to get burst, just there's a villain to every story. So can you kind of tell us where things just kind of fell apart due to administration and just shadiness? Feel free to tell us what went wrong and anything you want to share about that.
Ooh, I would say as a leader, not all of the administration exhibited this shadiness behavior, but I've heard it said, someone said on one of your previous shows that you can either fight administration or the students, but you can't fight both. And that so resonated with me. I think what happened is as the students began to do well and increase in their testing, not even just in my class, but across in their other subjects. As that began to increase, it really kind of, put a beam towards me. I didn't know that anything trifling, that's a good word, yeah, trifling was going on. But it just seemed that I was, always at an impasse with administration, with doing things, despite the fact that my students were behaved, despite the fact that I had them working. I learned from my mama, keep you working. So you don't have time to act up. So I had them working on things. I was challenging them. So the balloon popped when it came to, getting contracts and determining whether or not I was going to be asked to teach there again. And I wasn't, despite in spite of this and what happened. And matter of fact, the rationale that was given was a sheet of paper, and it said, um, it's not you. It's not us. It's just maybe not best for the students, but it's not you.
What?
But it's not us. And you're good.
Hmm.
We just don't want you here. So there was no palpable, tangible, write-upable, if I can make a word, reason to ask me not to stay. Matter of fact, there are a lot of people there that should have been gone for, a long time ago, that were really bringing great harm to our students. Harm and not physical harm, but harm and damaging and misuse of the time appropriated for them to teach the students. In other words, not doing what they were supposed to do for the students in that time. But they said, you're out of here, and I'm looking and I'm like, what? And some of my colleagues who are in with them are coming and say, we're going to go fight for you. Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. And I appreciate them so, because they stood up and they said, you know, Union should get rid of blah, blah, blah. But you should leave Miss Williams. Do you see what she's done? Do you see? But they didn't want that. And I didn't really find out about the test results, how well my students did until a year later. My students let me know. And a person who was a former administration assistant principal there also let me know. And so it kind of, it answered the questions that I had. Like, I know they did well. I know I gave all. I could see their progress. Their parents could see their progress. We made some amazing memories, had amazing celebrations. My boys went to the golfing place to celebrate their accomplishments. The girls had a big shindig showdown with food because I couldn't take them out because they knew, you know. But we had made great strides, and only when after I was out and my students would contact me and say, Miss Williams, can you help us do this? Can you help us start a business? Can you give us, help us with setting up some things? And one said, Miss Williams, did you know? I said, guys, how'd you do on the test? They said, Miss Williams, we got top. I said, what? But no one shared that with me.
Hmm.
No one. So that was the big balloon. That was the big, I don't know. If a shoe fell, maybe that was a combat boot that fell. It was, and it was quite disheartening because it was hard leaving them. It was. And I'd gone back a year after that to visit a couple of my teachers to deliver something to them. And one of my students ran out. Matter of fact, he was the one that I called his papa on. And he ran out and just looked. He said, I miss you. And I tell you, I just moved. I just, and I just, not the ugly cry because I was out in public that time, but, you know, I know that I'm not alone in dealing with the trauma that's associated with that. And it really it's just a higher level of educative bullying, I think, that's going on. And unfortunately, in the wake of all of that warfare and battle, it is the students that are the casualties, and they will continue to do so unless we get people in position that have a heart to allow them to increase, to allow the teachers there that are good at what they do, that actually love what they do, to do it. So yeah, that was not a good thing.
Wow. And you had reason to believe that they were actually stopping you from getting hired at other places for a few years, right?
Yeah. Like any organization, those in that particular field, they have connections ones with another. And what I understood by being moved into the English the ELA class, was that a school, they have the wherewithal, the authority, especially the principal administration, to decide that they want to move you in another area and utilize you in in that aspect, especially in a public school, where droves and droves of teachers are leaving, especially there. So I applied at another school, and the principal there, I had worked under him before, top notch guy. Matter of fact, I called. I said, "Hey, you're needing a drama teacher, right?" Trish, that is so up my alley. If I don't have an alley, it creates an alley for me. That is what I do, the music, all of those things. And he said, absolutely, because we worked well together before. And he saw, when I worked with the students, how they went from non-performers to amazing performers. So, and this is the vocal music, I'm sorry, vocal music. So I went there, and, I had my application, even had as a recommendation one of a Broadway actor that was in one of my productions, and I had the goods, I had the chops to do this, but no, it didn't work, and I didn't understand why it didn't until I kind of learned from other people that you know that's what they have this. I think anybody has just like this. What do you call it? What do you call it? What am I doing? What did they talk to each other? What
Like
is that trick?
a
Huh?
network? Like a network?
Yeah, yeah, that fancy dancy word. They have a network, and unfortunately, it was unfortunate with me in one phase. But ultimately, I believe that all this works in my favor. All of it worked, as hard as it was and has, and some of the things I hadn't thought about, and invariably some things will come up, and I'll be like, why? But I think it all worked and is working in my favor because it has propelled me to do what I do now, which is, taking all of that, the knowledge, the research and everything, and creating curriculum and programs and courses that really help to bridge the learning gap of students of all ages. And had I not gone through that, I just would not have, I wouldn't even considered this. I wouldn't even thought about this. So for some of the teachers, as they look, if they watch this or whatever, I would like to encourage them that the love that they have for doing this teaching thing does not have to dissipate, wane, or you don't necessarily have to put it on the shelf. Be open to seek other avenues, because one thing we know, the students that need our help, those numbers are growing, and they still need our help, and they do need our help, and they need a connection with people who want the best for them. Heck, start a school, do something.
Definitely. Well, I would love to hear more about the things you've created because some of your work has actually been taken up by Oklahoma's district, right? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'm thanks to one of my students in class. I'll say his first name, Patrick. They were, I had them at the board doing word wars, and the girls were writing in cursive, and they were kicking their tails. They were getting it on fast because cursive is quicker. And I watched him, and he turned to me and he said, Miss Williams, you got to teach us how to write cursive. That's when I learned that they did not know how to write cursive. So I undertook learning the benefits of cursive, and I created a 30-day Ninja Cursive. It is a it is actually a curriculum, a full curriculum, and a 30-day actually points to like a letter per day, and then you work on everything together. But I was working on that and developing the characters, the program, and everything. And in June of this past year, in the summer, our legislation passed a law. The governor signed it into law that required cursive writing be taught for every student from third to fifth grade. Now, that was amazing because I was already in that vein. And so I got I'm gonna show you this, okay? I got this is everyday cursive writing, and it is actually approved. The curriculum is approved by the Oklahoma State Department of Education. That so when I tell you teachers there's something you can do, you can. I did not expect that opportunity to be there. I did not even know it was on the horizon. I just knew that I was working. First of all, Patrick asked me. I said yes, so he was going to hold me to it. I couldn't back out of it because that was their expectation. If I said I was going to do it, then I was going to do it. But I didn't even know that they were doing this, but I was just working and it came about. So I believe, Trish, that I am maybe the only single or person recognized publisher, because the publishing industry for our schools, that is big business. It's huge. You've got a lot of companies that have been in it for look, even as long as when I was in college. I remember those names. So I developed that, and the content that I use, when I talked about the daily writing content for my students, I compiled that into a course and a booklet. And of course, all of these, they're available on Amazon, but I do offer them for, digital. You can get them digitally for much lower than Amazon. Um, but I created brain grooves and writing moves. And that was stemmed from when I was telling my students, put some wrinkles on your brains. I learned that when we learn, new things we learn, it's grooves and that's created in your brain. So they would walk around and say, I'm Ms. Williams. I got a wrinkle on my brain today. And they were hilarious. Now, one of my girls said, my brain is smooth. And we said, well, we're going to work on that. But yes, I have that. I have a YouTube channel that I thought my goal was to make my creation knowledge, anything that can help the parents and the students through these times, make it accessible and available. So I have the Erica Tree Learning channel, and that's on YouTube. You see there's a lot of music happening on there, Trish. It is musified because that's what I create for my multiply this, which it teaches the teaching multiplication. So this is what he has me doing. They talk about you pivoting. I guess what did I do? I guess I cabbage patched, and I guess I did all of those things because once you love doing something, that passion for it, it doesn't go away. And so, if I can encourage teachers or, even you and what you're doing, Trish, just keep going, keep doing what you're doing. Even if no one's looking, keep doing it because invariably you're going to learn something and it's going to come to the point where someone else will need what you have. Because the things that we've learned, the gifts that we have, they're not just for us, and they're for other people. So, yeah.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And I'm kind of curious, What do you wish the general public knew about a teacher's job, whether that's like administrators or parents or just society at large? What do you wish that they really understood and knew about a teacher's job?
Gosh, the lack of time we have to impart specific knowledge, and that the requirements of that knowledge is a lot of them are regulated. We have to teach certain things to students in a certain period of time. And I wish they understood that when they send their students unprepared in minimal things, when they don't require that their students are um, focused, when they don't back up and make sure that their students' behavior is in line, that takes away from their students' learning as well. So for our parents, I would say you are the first bastions of education, for your student. And you may have abdicated that, but you are well within your right to take it back. And you make the decision that you are going to do what you need to do for your student to get what they need to get, which means you need to be involved. You just need to be. And if you need help, ask for help because we're there to do that. And for the administrators, some of them haven't even taught. I know some who have never taught a class. And for those who have, perhaps you have not taught these types of classes. So my hopes is that you understand that teachers need your support behind them. If you support the teachers, then the students will see that and everything else will fall better into place. And understand that, especially those teachers who are really trying and who are making progress, they are keepers. They are keepers, right? So allow them to do the work if they're doing what they're supposed to be and to not fear the parents, the district, or the students. Everyone has to operate within what they're doing, you know. And for the students, yes, and for them too, realize that you have a limited time within which to take advantage of, in some cases, most cases, free education and people that are there to impart knowledge, to give you wisdom, to help you navigate this world. And as I tell my students, the wolf is at the door and it is waiting for you to come out unprepared so that it can utilize you, gobble you up, and take all that you have. But remember, this is the time, and people do not have to give their best to you. But when they do, honor it and get all you can while the getting's good.
Wonderful, Latanya. Well, I feel like I could talk to you all day, but I think you've
I
given
know.
us a lot of food for thought. And I think your story will resonate with a lot of teachers that really were amazing at their jobs, but a jealous admin, a competitive admin, a petty admin kind of stepped in and tried to mess things up. But I think that your story is so redemptive because you've been able to turn all of those experiences that you work so hard, with for your students and turn that into curriculums, turn that into just something that can reach an even wider audience. So I'm so excited just to link all of your stuff in the description so that people can find you. And tell us again, what was your YouTube channel name?
Erica-Tree-Learning. So Erica Tree Learning. And just so you know, Erica or Erica is a type of palm tree. So when you see the logo, you'll see the little kids reading under the palm tree. That's me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Latanya, and thank you, audience, so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all of the things. And if you want to interview with me, feel free to email me at teachertherapytrish@gmail.com. And we will see you guys next time. Bye for now, everybody.